a favor del IDF, del Ejército de Israel, a pesar de la cantidad de adversidades que has tenido para lograr esta lucha. ¿Con qué amenazas o con qué tipo de situaciones te has enfrentado provocadas por lo que persigues? ¿Y cómo ve Inglaterra lo que estás haciendo?
Thank you for that question. Why do I support the IDF? The Israel Defense Force is fighting for us as well as for the State of Israel. They are fighting the same war as we're fighting against the global jihad. They're fighting the same enemies as we fight. If it wasn't for the IDF, the refugee situation, for example, in Europe would be 100 times as bad, because the IDF are protecting states like Jordan, states like Egypt, protecting them from the Islamic State, as well as protecting their own country from the Islamic State. And that in itself prevents further catastrophic refugee problems that would suck Europe even further down than it's going. But that's not the fundamental reason. The fundamental reason is because Israel is our friends. Israel is a friend of Britain. Britain hasn't always been a good friend to Israel. I hope we are today, but we haven't always been. But they're our friends. And I just want to give you two brief examples as to ways that the Israelis have shown friendship that affects me personally. And the first one of those, I was working in the Prime Minister's office, and I was asked to go out and take command of British forces in Afghanistan back in 2003. And as usual in the British Army, I was given 2 weeks' notice to go. That's what we do. Not necessarily that convenient, and my wife didn't fully understand it, but nevertheless, that was the way it was. And it was the first time, as a commander, I'd faced many terrorist threats over the years. Every kind of terrorist threat you could imagine. But the one threat that I hadn't faced up to that point was suicide terrorism. And the British Army did not know how to deal with suicide terrorism, but I knew somebody who did. And I spoke to my colleague who I was working with in the Mossad in London, the head of the Mossad station in London, and I said to him, can you ask the defense attaché from the embassy to come and tell me how the Israeli forces combat suicide terrorism? And he said no. And I said, that's a bit tough. I mean, you know, we consider ourselves friends. I've given you lots of secrets I shouldn't have done. I've shared coffee with you. And he said, no, I'm going to do better than that. He didn't just get the defense attaché from the embassy, we could have done. He sent for a brigadier general who was commanding an Israeli unit in the Golan Heights, but who was considered to be the Israeli Defense Force's #1 expert on countering suicide terrorism. He sent for him. He came to London 2 days later. He and I sat in a hotel lobby in West London for 4 hours, him talking, me writing. From that I produced the British Army's doctrine for dealing with suicide terrorism, which saved the lives of many British soldiers over the years, and indeed was later adopted by NATO and the US forces, and therefore has saved the lives of many others. That was the action of a true friend. They didn't need to do that. The second case, I was chairman of what we call the Cobra Intelligence Group, which is a national intelligence group that supports our crisis management committee, like the Americans' White House Situation Center that time. I was chairman of the intelligence group on the 7th of July 2005, when we experienced a wave of suicide bombings on our underground in one of our buses in London. And it hit us hard. We didn't expect it. Our intelligence didn't predict it. It happened at 9 minutes on that morning. At 9:05, I got 2 phone calls. I got one phone call from the head of the CIA in London saying, if you want help, let us know, we'll do it. A second phone call I got from the head of Mossad in London, who said, anything you want, anything you need, any assets, any resources, any intelligence, anything at all you need, tell me and you'll have it, immediately. That was the action of a true friend. I didn't get a phone call from France. I think the second part of the question, I'll be very brief here, because I love the sound of my own voice, so I keep going on. But I was asked what threats I faced. Well, I faced many threats. from people for my defence of Israel. And I'm currently on a death list from a terrorist group called Al-Shabaab, which operates predominantly in Somalia and Kenya, which recently killed, I think, about 12 Kenyan citizens, police, I believe, or military. They don't very much like what I say about Israel or other places. I've also experienced anti-Semitism directed at me. Although, as I said, I'm not a Jew, but I knew about anti-Semitism before, but I've now experienced anti-Semitism firsthand and personally. And ladies and gentlemen, I can report to you, I am delighted. Because the kind of people that express their anti-Semitic hatred to me are the kind of people that I want to antagonise. And I do antagonise. And I am telling the truth about Israel and the reality. And I don't care what they say. And I'm very happy for them to direct their anger and fury in my direction if they wish to. Next question.
Thank you, Richard. Han habido muchas preguntas alrededor de este tema y más o menos lo concluimos con estas tres. ¿Por qué no todos saben lo que está sucediendo? O sea, ¿por qué existen diferentes versiones, diferentes historias de lo que está sucediendo hoy en día? ¿Cómo hemos llegado a que existan estas transformaciones de información? O sea, si hay algo pasando, ¿por qué existen noticias diferentes? Y tercero, ¿qué podemos hacer al respecto para compartir la verdad real y que todos tengamos la misma historia?
Andy, the question makes perfect sense. I would expect nothing else from you. By the way, he and his father introduced me to the terrors of tequila a couple of days ago.
Mezcal.
Mezcal, sorry. I can't even get that right. But anyway, they led me astray, I'll say no more. I mean, the reality that we have to accept, and if we accept it, then many other things become clear. There are two realities, there are two facts, and I think it'd be worth everyone remembering these two facts because they're very significant. The first one is that the state of Israel has been and is being subjected to the greatest smear campaign in the history of the world. Never has there been such a massively orchestrated, funded and financed smear campaign against anyone or anything as against the state of Israel. It goes back many, many years. It's funded by Arab funds, it's supported by their followers in places like the United Nations, the EU and Western European countries, and in places in America. And it's incredibly effective. And it doesn't care about the truth. It lies about the truth. It distorts the truth. The second fundamental factor to recognise is that the Palestinians do not want their own state. That's a fact. They don't want their own state, they don't want a two-state solution. What they want above all, is the annihilation of the Jewish state. That's all they want. Did they, during the Mandate period, before 1948, did the Arabs in that part of the world want their own state? Did they demand their own state? No. When Jordan illegally occupied areas of Palestine, including Jerusalem, did they demand their own state then? No. They don't want their own state, they want to annihilate the Jews. They've been attacking the Jews since the 1920s and 1930s. It's not something new. They're not attacking the Jews because of so-called illegal settlements. It's nothing to do with it. They want to annihilate the Jewish state. So we have to see everything in that light. And I'm afraid to say that it's a fact. If these people want peace, and I'm not actually abusing the individual Palestinian citizen. People accuse me sometimes of being anti-Arab or anti-Muslim. I've received 3 medals for fighting and putting my life on the line for Arabs. So I'm not against them, but I just recognise the reality. And the reality is that if they really wanted peace with Israel, if they had the idea of negotiating peace with Israel, then would the Palestinian Authority churn out films, textbooks, television programs, books,